Imagine a world without risk, at least without risk other than that represented by the laws of nature. Imagine a world where insurance was no longer needed and where no one was worried about losing their job or paying their bills. A person could walk around day or night without fear of being accosted or robbed. There would be no war. All it takes for this to exist is for people to be honest. However, all it takes is for one person to be dishonest to destroy the system. What does the Bible say? To deliver such an one unto Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that the spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord Jesus. Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump? Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. 1 Corinthians 5 verses 5-8. A society can be enlightened with the right influencer and destroyed with the wrong. It depends on who we listen to. According to the Bible, it takes 3 people with faith to initiate change. According to most experts, it is virtually impossible to change anything. Everyone listens to and believes the experts and prove the experts right. It is virtually impossible to achieve real and meaningful change listening to the experts. Human authorities do not know where risk comes from or how to alleviate it, therefore cannot usher in any real change. Even if things are changed, the risk remains. There is no legitimate form of ownership. Risk has no meaning. All risk is a perceived liability. All risk poses as a threat to property, that is to something we believe we own. However, if we claim something that is not rightfully ours, it is us who pose a risk to the rightful owner, and because our claim cannot be legitimized, it will always be at risk of being removed from us. How do we own what we did not create? What process is used? There is only one means by which ownership can be established when there is no creative origin, and that is by force. There are only 2 forms of ownership, strategic and natural. The only natural form of ownership is by creation. One creates what is owned. Strategic ownership is when something is claimed to give the owner a strategic advantage. No one claims the ownership of debt that they did not create, because it provides no strategic advantage. If one found a source of gold, everyone who could would be claiming ownership because the ownership of gold is seen as an unmitigated benefit. If people want to own property and contrive means of obtaining it or title to it, how much more would people want to own the planet, or at least some portion of it? But if I were to claim the Hudson River, how would I justify my claim? Assume I have a very large army and could defeat anyone who opposed my claim? This would make the claim technically defensible, but still not philosophically or theologically sound. I could write reams of laws and make a flowery constitution laying out all the rights and privileges I bestow upon myself, but without the army and my willingness to use it, the arguments would not mean a thing. There is no way to justify my ownership of 1 grain of sand or 1 drop of water that would hold up in any reasonable court of justice, not based on the self-serving law created by the one on trial. The ownership of anything natural is banditry. There is no argument that can defend anyone's claim, whether they be a nation, empire, of an individual. There is no legitimate way to buy land because there is no legitimate owner to sell it to you. Everything natural was created by God, and He is the only possible owner of all that is physical and natural. We own the value we add to the things of God. No one has standing before God to contest the righteous claim to the physical universe. There is no justice in any claim, regardless how made or who makes it, made by any man or any corporate body to any part of the planet. If we cannot own any part of the earth, then what is strategy but a manipulation of the facts to defraud God out of what belongs to Him and man out of what was given to him for his enjoyment? So long as man keeps making strategic claims on what belongs to God, we will have our own wealth exposed to risk from similar strategic activities. All risk comes in the form of an illegitimate claim to property. Threats against the person depersonalize the victim and dehumanize them. Yet, even here the objective is usually to obtain the person's property. Slavery was less about the enslavement of a person than about gaining the right to the slave's labor. Everything in this world is created by God and by rights the property of God. Some allowance is made for the ownership of personal property. But there is no justification for an individual to lay claim on physical property he or she intends to use as commercial property. We do not have a right to the proceeds gained by the exploitation of land, water, or the resources contained on or in them. When someone or some consortium acquires land and water, they pose a risk to the rest of us. This is the start of dishonesty, and it is dishonesty that poses a risk and, if left unchecked, destroys any hope of prosperity. Imagine 1,000 people who are honest. Everyone works to earn what they need to live. No one defrauds the other. There are no bills of sale, no debt, no interest, no laws, or descriptions of ingredients or contents. Because everyone is honest, there is no fraud or deceit. One person enters this place and sees everyone trusts him, and he trusts everyone because he knows they are honest. Because everyone is honest, there is equality. But the new citizen does not wish to be equal. He wants power. He wants the wealth that will give him power. But how can he be unequal and gain power if he, like the rest of the community, is honest? Because everyone is honest, it is a simple matter for the dishonest seller to shortchange his customers, cheapen his products, skimp on the ingredients, and generally reduce what he supplies while doing what he can to increase what he receives. Without protection and a means of holding people accountable, there is always the temptation for dishonesty to enter a perfectly honest system. This is where the world failed. It did not protect the honest person, but left him unprotected when faced with the liar and the cheat and the scam artist and criminal. Because ultimately, the biggest criminal of them all and the biggest scam artist is the state. We need to understand the source of all risk is the dishonest person, and the start of all dishonesty is the need to live free, that is, without assuming responsibility for one's own costs. At the individual level, this results in scams and criminal acts. But at the corporate or group level, we get war and the state itself, along with all of the activities the state engages in to try and justify its existence. But how can a parasite justify its existence except by justifying parasitism, and who can it justify this to but other parasites? This is the source of the social justice movement, a movement created solely to try and justify dishonesty. One unjust and immoral act is used to justify another until the dog finally catches its tail in the form of the state, and ultimately a one-world government that owns and controls everything, without a single justification for its existence, other than that provided by its existence. It's called the law of the jungle, which states that might makes right, and the end justifies the means. If one is not committed to honesty and justice, there is only one thing available to keep order, and that is brute force, or its threat. There is only two options available. Every choice we make comes under one of two headings or aligns with one of the two options. We are a theological person or a numerological one. We strive for quality in our life, or we strive for quantity. The theological person is primarily focused on community and the welfare of the group, whereas the numerological person sees significance in numbers. He or she wants more of something. The desire is for more, irrespective of what the consequences or implications are, so the person who just wants to get rich and famous will do what it takes. The test of a numerologist is that he or she will sacrifice the quality of their life to gain more money or fame. To have quality of life is to have a community life. Quantity is something more personal. We want more of this or that for ourselves. When the community has more money or better jobs, the quality of life improves. When the individual gets a better job or more money, he is seen as someone who has become richer or more successful, even if his or her quality of life has declined. To eliminate risk is to eliminate the potentiality for claims against what we produce. That requires we eliminate liabilities, which are assets that have competing claims attached to them, as with a mortgage or the position of the state as a lien holder. But two criminals who have stolen a car have trouble deciding who owns it and how to control its use. The same goes for the things of this world. When we take ownership of the things of nature, there is no true way we can justify our ownership of it, rather than someone else. Why ought to pay the payment of money to own land make a difference? We are not paying the real owner. We are paying someone who happened to seize it. It is not much difference that buying stolen goods off of a robber. The only way to truly and completely eliminate risk is to eliminate theft, because ultimately all risk is the threat that someone will claim what you created, and the only way we can eliminate that threat if no one is permitted to own anything they did not create. This means all of the natural world is off limits to human beings. We cannot own any of it because we did not create any of it. Everything physical was created by God. Mankind cannot own any of it. We own the value we add to the planet. This is equity as contrasted the assets created and owned by God. Only when we start by honoring God's ownership of the universe will we be able to be in a position to defend our own position as owners of the equity we create.